Welcome back to Golf the Barracks Winning What's in the Bag, where this week we're taking a look at Michael Brennan's Winning What's in the Bag from the 2025 Bank of Utah Championship. Interesting enough, this was Michael Brennan's third start on the PGA Tour. He had just 2 months ago, jumped onto the Korn Ferry Tour. So he was on the PGA Tour of Americas and jumped up to the Korn Ferry Tour and now wins on the PGA Tour. So congratulations to him. What an exciting 2 months. What a run that he has been on. So very cool to see him win. He had a 4-stroke win here out in Utah. And we're going to jump into his bag now. He is a Titleist staffer, so everything in this bag is going to be Titleist. And we start at the top, of course, with driver, and he is playing the Titleist GT3. So this is kind of the lower launching, lower spinning driver in the GT lineup. There is a GT4 that's even more so, but the GT3 is kind of the common one for most players who have a blend of spin control, launch control, and pretty neutral flight bias. Now this one has a ton of adjustability to it. His is a 9-degree head, and he is playing it in the B2 position on the hosel. So the SureFit adapter is set to B2, which is the standard loft, which is 9 degrees, but it is 0.75 degrees upright. And going upright can kind of help with strike position, and it can promote a little bit more of a draw depending on what the player is using it for. And then his sole weight on the plate on the bottom, has an adjustable weight that you can go out towards the toe, down towards the heel, kind of set up the flight bias of the club. His is actually set to neutral, and the weight in there looks like it's a copper weight. It's hard to tell from the photos with the shadow and stuff like that. It looks like a copper weight, which is the 14-degree weight in there. It also could be white, which is, I believe, 6 grams, but I think it's 14 because he's playing a Project X HZRDUS Blue or HZRDUS Smoke Blue RDX 70 TX. Now, the reason I say it's probably 14 is because he's playing a counterbalance shaft. So the Project X HZRDUS Smoke Blue, the RDX one, was a counterbalance shaft. I don't think Project X makes it anymore, but it was kind of a low launch, low spin shaft, but counterbalance meaning it had more weight towards the butt end of the shaft. So they kind of put more of the weight up there, and it can be used for 2 reasons. One, some players like to put a little more head weight into the head for that kind of feel, or the fact that more mass in the head they feel like promotes better ball speed. Or players like to play the shaft longer in their driver, and in order to get swing rate right, the counterbalance shaft helps that kind of happen in the build. Now the shaft is kind of lower launch, lower spinning. It's supposed to be kind of just a counterbalance version of HZRDUS Smoke Black RDX. I think it launches just a little bit higher than that, but it's still a very stout shaft, especially in the 70 TX. It's got a pretty firm handle, a little softer midsection, and a stiff tip again, and that kind of helps promote a little more ball speed, a little more feel in it, and it comes in at 75 grams and 3.2 degrees of torque. Now with that counterbalance shaft, that's what makes me think that he's adding weight to the head to make it heavier, so I think he's probably playing the 14-degree copper one, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Then we move into 3-wood, and his 3-wood is a Titleist, I'm going to call it GT1 prototype. The GT1, of course, is the high-launching, kind of higher spin, more forgiving head that Titleist makes, but they did just come out with a GT1 3 Tour, which is geared a little bit more towards the bigger hitter, better player. But the GT1, I'm going to call it prototype because it doesn't say 3 Tour on it, but it is 14.5 degrees, which is what that GT1 3 Tour is. And what they did was that head, they kind of designed it to be a little bit lower spinning while still maintaining high launch. And of course, it has the 2 movable weights in the sole that you can move the heavy weight forward, back, split them up, really kind of adjust how you want the head to play. Now, the sole weights on Michael's are 13 gram forward weight and a 3 gram rear weight. So he is definitely taking that heavy weight, pushing it forward, which should reduce the spin, maybe reduce that launch a little bit. Now the head is still a little bit on the bigger side, so when you look down on it, the overall footprint is a little bit larger, face is slightly deeper than a traditional GT1, but this has been a super popular fairway wood because it combines, the ease of launch with that low spin, the ball speed, all that, and some added forgiveness. So really good setup there, and the hosel on this one is set to D1, which is minus 0.75 degrees of loft, but a standard lie angle. Now the shaft in this one is another counterbalance shaft, but it is the Project X HZRDUS Gen 5 Yellow handcrafted in 80TX. So the handcrafted moniker was a big thing that Project X had a long time ago, and they were shafts that were all hand-rolled in their Carlsbad, California location. They brought that back just a few years ago with the T1100 and this new Gen 5 HZRDUS handcrafted yellow. And this yellow is, again, a counterbalance version of the HZRDUS black that was out. So the Gen 5 HZRDUS black. This is the counterbalance version. And again, very similar. It's got a little more of a tapered midsection that's a hair softer, helps promote a little bit more ball speed, and it concentrates more weight in the handle of the shaft. The handle and the tip still very stiff for control. And this is kind of a low mid-launch, low spin shaft. Now this one here is a tour-only part. The 80TX is never offered to us at retail. They do make a 70, but not an 80. So exact specs, I'm not 100% sure of. It's probably going to be around 85 grams and probably torque and probably the mid to high twos if I had to guess. Right around that. But the handcrafted ones, again, rolled all in Carlsbad, California, where the non-handcrafteds are rolled elsewhere, either, I believe, by hand still, but elsewhere, not in Carlsbad. So that is the 3-wood. And then we move into his irons, and his first thing is, we'll call it a utility iron, but it's a 3-iron for him, and it is a Titleist T150 3-iron. This is the 2025 head, the brand new one that came out, and the T150 is slightly bigger, a little bit hotter, and stronger lofted than the T100 irons. So this can add a little bit of speed, a little bit of launch, and it has maybe a hair lower spinning than the T100, but a little bit longer with having the same really kind of player's distance profile from address. Still is a thin top line, very reduced offset. Really players look to it while adding some added spin, speed and launch that he might like in that utility iron. Now this one's shafted up with a Project X HZRDUS Gen 4 black hybrid in the 105TX. So this is the super heavyweight, 105 grams. It's 1.9 degrees of torque, which is super low. And this is, again, low mid-launch, low spin shaft, very stout, stiff feeling shaft, which is going to have kind of a lot of control to it, very stable for higher swing speed players. But that is a setup for 3-iron. And then we jump into his irons, and it is, again, kind of a combo set. Titleist T100s in the 4 through 5 iron. So 4 and 5 iron, Titleist T100, which again, like the T150, very similar design. It is kind of a player's blade looking, very thin top line, no offset, smaller than the T150. But the T100 actually has then that lower channel is hollow, and inside there are 2 tungsten weights that help add stability and consistency to that head. So internally there, that is not a solid piece of metal. That is actually put on later, and there's 2 weights in there. So a great feeling iron, really good look from address, but it has some great performance, especially on miss hits and consistency. And when the new ones that are out, the 2025 models, they have actually updated the grooves on these as well. So they produce better spin retention from fairway to rough type lies. So it's going to maintain more spin, have more control going onto the green. But he's playing those 4 through 5 iron, and those are shafted up with Project X 6.5 shafts. So this is the OG Project X 6.5. Kind of initially a little bit higher of a launch, but very flat, low spin apex, and very stout feel. But then the rest of his irons are the Titleist 620 CBs, and that is 6 through 9 irons. So the 620 CB is a great CB. It's been around since basically end of 2019, and right now it doesn't look like Titleist has a new one to come out anytime really soon. And why would they? This had a ton of wins on tour. It's an iron that's played by a ton of really highly skilled players. Very soft, single piece forged. I believe the long irons have a little bit of tungsten out in the toe internally that you don't see. It's kind of finished into the head, but 6 through 9 iron playing these. The blade length's a little bit shorter from heel to toe, so it's got kind of a little bit of a stubbier look to it. Really good, great sounding, great feeling, very consistent in terms of shot for shot. When you hit it there, you know how far it's going to go. There's no speed built into the face, so you're not worried about hot spots or anything like that. But playing those 6 through 9 iron, and those also have Project X 6.5s. So these are 125 grams, really stout, kind of stiff feeling shaft. You don't feel a lot of flex to them at like the top as you go to transition downward. There's not a lot of loading of the shaft, not a lot of kick. It's very boardy, but for higher speed players, it does offer a lot of stability. And again, lower spinning, not super low launch, even though if you go on their website, Project X, it'll say low launch, low spin. I think they come off a little bit higher than that. But again, that apex is kind of flat because they don't spin a ton. Then we jump into wedges, and his first wedge is going to be a pitching wedge replacement, which is the Titleist Vokey SM10, and he's playing the 46.10 F grind. So this is going to be the one that is going to replace the pitching wedge, 46 degrees. It pretty much fits right in line with the 620 CB. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe that thing's bent, maybe a little bit weak or something like that, depending on how he plays the lofts on there. I don't have his exact specs for this. But the F-grind, of course, is a great full sole design. Has a little bit of camber to it, but great on full shots. Doesn't dig. And this one here has the matching shaft of the irons, which is the Project X 6.5. Again, 125 grams. Lowish, low mid-launch, very low spin. The next wedge in his arsenal is a gap wedge, and it is a 50.12 F grind, and this is the high bounce version of the 50. And I seem like it's funny. I feel like we talk about more about the 50.12 F grind than we ever do about the 50.08 F grind. And it seems like a lot of these players out on tour are playing the higher bounce version, and I think because it matches sets pretty well. Typically, pitching wedges can be anywhere from 8 or 9 degrees up to 10, 12, stuff like that. So I think it matches really well. And with players probably using this more for full shots, they're probably taking a little bit bigger divot, and that F grind tends to get into the turf and want to get out quickly, keeping that divot shallow, not digging too much in the turf. So that's going to be the 50.12 F for the gap wedge. And then we move into sand wedge, and his sand wedge is a 54.10 S grind. So the S grind, the big difference is that trailing edge, you can see there's kind of like a grind line there. They kind of grind off part of that trailing edge, helps release it from the turf. So as you're hitting shots, it gets in. That fuller sole will, of course, want that club to kind of shallow out, get out of the turf. And then as it's leaving the turf, that trailing edge there will help release it. And then also if they open the face a little bit, that back edge being trimmed off will keep that leading edge down just a little bit as they open the face, allow them to hit just shots off tighter lies and things like that. Now his is bent to 55 degrees, so it is 1 week, so it's kind of playing like a 55.11 S. Not a huge difference there between them, but those are the two gap and sand wedges. And then we get into his lob wedge, and his lob wedge is a Titleist Vokey SM, or Titleist Vokey WedgeWorks 60 K star grind. So the K star grind starts off kind of its life as a K grind that is then kind of trimmed down. You can see there's some trailing edge relief there. They kind of grind off the back there. And then the leading edge has kind of a pre-worn leading edge built into it as well. This is a little bit lower bounce as well. Usually I believe these are right around 6 degrees of bounce, but that leading edge, the pre-worn leading edge, one, helps keep the leading edge down on tight lies, so you can kind of get under the ball and get the strike more in center. And it also helps as that club enters the turf. It kind of helps, again, shallow out that div a little bit. And then, of course, on that back end, having that trailing edge relief from the heel all the way to the back allows that player to open up the face, keep the leading edge low, hit some higher lofted, more flop shots off tighter lies and things like that. That wider sole, though, still lets it play really well out of the trap. So a great grind, very versatile. We've seen it in a lot of bags as the year has progressed, just seeing it added. A lot of guys going from what it seemed T grind into K star. So a big change there. Now, all three of these are shafted up with True Temper Dynamic Gold Tour Shoe S400 wedges. Wedge shafts, we talk about these every week, of course. 132 grams, kind of low mid launch, really traditional feel where you've got a kind of a stiff handle. It gets a little softer in the mid and the tip, but still produces kind of a flatter ball flight, but a little bit heavier for that feel in the bottom end of the bag. Now, putter for him is going to be a Scotty Cameron T7.2 prototype. It's a Circle T putter there that is kind of based off the retail Phantom 7.2 that we can buy in stores. Now, the Phantom 7.2 is, of course, the kind of fang-looking, the triangular shape putter that has the plumber's neck on it, or the L neck, as they call it. And what that does is adds offset. And it's interesting, I was just learned a little while ago that a lot of, or certain pros will actually use that L neck as a little bit of alignment, or that one that's front edge that kind of goes near the ball. It's actually used for alignment as well. But the offset there kind of changes the look and how that putter is delivered a little bit. This is a multi-material head, so the whole body is stainless steel, and then that bottom plate is aluminum, allowing the engineers to kind of take some of that weight out of the bottom, move it out towards the edges, increase the MOI of the putter. And if you look on top of his has kind of a unique kind of sight line. It's got these two kind of arrows that are on the top line that kind of point towards the ball, and then, of course, these single white lines that run down the fangs to kind of frame it. So a lot of alignment aids there on the top of it. And this one here looks to have a black stainless steel shaft and two 10-gram weights in the sole. And the grip on this one looks to be a Scotty Cameron Pistolero grip on there. I can't tell exactly, and I'm not an exact perfect Scotty Cameron grip person, but it looks to be that grip because it's got a little bit more arc in the upper hand, and it has a pretty flat top on it that tapers down near the end of the grip where it meets the shaft. Now for ball, Michael is playing the Titleist Pro V1, and of course the Pro V1 is going to be the lower launching, lower spinning ball compared to the Pro V1X. It's also going to be a little softer in feel. Not sure exactly what year he's playing of that ball, but it is a Pro V1. And then the grips on the rest of his clubs, of course, are the Golf Pride ZGrip cord. So that is probably the firmest, roughest grip that Golf Pride makes. It's got this cotton cord that actually runs through the grip, and it kind of helps with sweaty hands, moisture, anything like that. It's just a really rough, tacky grip that the firmness gives a lot of feedback from ball strikes and things like that, but that corded texture gives it a lot of rough texture and helps it in those wet conditions so it doesn't slip or anything like that. So that is Michael Brennan's winning what's in the bag from the 2025 Bank of Utah Championship. Congratulations to him on his first PGA Tour win. It's always exciting to get that. And check back next week when we jump into the next winners. What's in the bag?